I think we're recording. So, hey, this is the Sustainiacs. I'm Michael Vincent. He is Matthew Belcher or Matt Belcher, I believe. I don't know him well enough to know that yet, but we're about to find out everything that Matthew has done for his entire life since he was born. I hope you're ready for some invasive surgery there, Matt. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, no, very good. Yeah, thanks for welcoming me on today. I'm delighted to meet you again and talk about Hemspan.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, let's get into this because I didn't introduce what the company is, but I see it behind you there, and that is awesome because I'm looking at this and I'm looking at some of the houses and the projects that you have, and can I build one of those in the United States yet? Is going to be one of my questions. But give us the elevator pitch on what Hemspan is. I know what it is, pretty much, probably not as well as you do, though.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Hemspan develops bio-based building systems and products that are carbon negative, and our focus is hemp because we believe that plant offers the best opportunity for the environment because one, it gives us material to work with, but it helps farmers, it helps soil, weed control, input reduction, and sequesters a hell of a lot of carbon, and won't interrupt food production. It will aid it,
Ah,
and that is why hemp is so special, and why we're so focused on hemp and not using other components.
so it's carbon negative. You said what? How is it carbon negative? What do you mean by that? I mean, I know um, like RNG, right, to fuel cars and stuff like that, or trucks is actually carbon negative, right? But how is using hemp carbon negative?
Well, I mean, obviously, like all plants, CO2 is drawn from the atmosphere and absorbed by the plant, and then we take that plant material, which is carbon, and we lock it up inside houses in the form of insulation, hempcrete, and other composite hemp components. So we're
Yeah.
storing carbon, and I think it's the best way, to sequester carbon with plant material is to put it inside a building that's going to last 100 years.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because then you have to go out and plant more hemp, right? So, I mean, basically, it's kind of, I mean, part of the process there is people, you're cutting down plants to build buildings. Isn't that bad? But it isn't bad. And I bring about the Christmas tree business here in the United States and probably, wherever you celebrate Christmas, it's actually better for the planet to use real Christmas trees because of the thousands and thousands of Christmas trees that are growing now that wouldn't be planted if you weren't consuming them, right?
Yeah, I think the beauty of hemp is it's an annual crop. So you plant it in the spring, and by the time early autumn arrives, you're harvesting, and then
Yeah.
and you grow it in rotation. You don't just grow hemp. You as a farmer, you're always looking to for a break crop to add value and nutrients to the soil. And if you look at a sort of take a field and every 5 years you're going to drop hemp in there, then a farmer could easily adopt 20% of his acreage in hemp, produce a biomass for building materials and repair soil and improve yields of production for the other 4 years on each plot. So that's
Yeah.
and trees are an important part of our mix because the structural components of our building system is timber, but
Right.
we only use fast growing certified sustainable timber.
Okay, so I got you. So for the projects that you're using, so it's not the entire project, or in this case, you can see them behind you, and they're beautiful, by the way. The houses that you've got that you're building there, it's not 100% a hemp house. You make products out of hemp that are used for construction of buildings, right? That I've got that right, right?
Yeah, pretty much, absolutely. So
Okay.
the yeah,
It's not
the
like Cheech and Chong trying to drive up from Tijuana in a truck that's made 100% out of pot and it catches on fire, right? If you've seen the movie.
I haven't seen the movie, but no, and there are, yeah, the timber probably makes up about 10% of the overall material
Gotcha.
composition. The rest is.
So what are the products that Hempspan makes? What are the products that are made?
So we make a complete housing system, and our housing system is called Biohouse, which we're very very proud of, and we are. So that's the sort of the whole house system, which is key to everything for us. But the individual products, we've got manufacturers and suppliers all over Europe that are manufacturing the specific component parts, because the UK market is less mature even than the US market, and there's not a lot of hemp grown in the UK yet. So what we're doing is we're focusing on demand. We've got a system that uses hemp products. We'll build a lot of houses, which will mean we need a lot of product. And
Right.
at some point, we will get into localized production, well, cultivation and processing of hemp. But that comes after demand.
Right.
And and our whole strategy is create demand by building houses that people really want to live in, because they're healthy, cheap to run, carbon negative, and then as we scale up, we contract with farmers and produce the raw material.
I got you. So are you making the BioFlex and the BioWall and the BioBoard and BioBlock through vendors at this
Yeah, yeah.
particular
So
moment
yeah,
in
so
time
we've
until
got
you build it?
manufacturing partners in Europe who
Gotcha.
who produce those products for us. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Um,
So can I import those from you into the United States if I'm building a house and see plans and utilize those? I mean, like is the bio board something I can build a deck out of or use it to if I'm doing an addition or building a house? Can I use your products in specific areas like you do in your project to
yeah,
build something
I
here?
think that our growth strategy is to license our whole house system into different territories.
Oh, okay. So
And
you don't want to build. You're not selling like built pieces of building products or stuff like that. You want to do the whole house system. So you're building a Hemspan house.
exactly,
Gotcha.
exactly. That's really, and only by doing that can you specify all of the components and how it's built and how
Ah,
much hemp is used, and that's why we're doing it that way. But the US is actually, I would say ahead of the UK on hemp, and there are some great companies in the US that we have relationships with that are manufacturing insulation material.
uh-huh.
What one would be Hempitecture, and we've actually just signed a partnership with a company called Hempwood, who are a US company, and we
Oh,
are importing and licensing their IP to introduce their product into the UK market. So I think there's going to be a lot of across the pond partnerships
yeah.
and opportunities, but there's a lot going on in the US around hemp
So is there?
already.
So let me ask you this, Matthew. Is there? Because I'm getting the sense that you, and maybe I'm thinking about this incorrectly, but the material that like the hemp board, et cetera, that type of stuff, if it is like incorporated into like a traditional building, right? Is it not effective or not as efficient as it would be if it's used in the total house system? Is that why the total house system? Like if I put hemp in my house, it's not going to help my house running, but it may help my. I mean, it lowers the carbon footprint of all the building materials that I'm using in my house, right? In their
Yeah,
production.
that's the key difference. If you're building your own timber frame house, which
Yeah,
I know a lot of our homes are timber frame in the US,
sure.
rather than using petrochemical based insulation products, you can use natural fiber insulation
Okay.
products and deliver the same thermal performance and efficiency, but you're sequestering carbon in doing that
Got
project.
you. Got you.
And
Okay.
the other key dynamic is that these natural materials are much better for the indoor environment and human beings, because
Oh,
you're
is that
not
right?
breathing in dangerous chemicals and toxins, which which are released into the air within any home where these chemicals are used to manufacture products.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, right? You're not sucking in asbestos anymore, hopefully, in most buildings, right? Um,
No,
yeah, and
absolutely.
glass fiber from your traditional insulation can't be a good thing for your lungs, I wouldn't
It's
imagine.
not. It's not. And I guess the best example, if you take a new car, you get into a new car, it has the smell
Yeah.
of a new car.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Everyone likes that new car smell
Sure.
because it makes you feel proud, good.
Yeah.
You've got something brand new.
Yeah.
But that smell is bad for you. That is toxic fumes coming off the plastics and other elements of that vehicle into your lungs. That's
Yeah.
what it is. But we love it. We lap it up. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, we suck up a lot of stuff that's not really good for us. I mean,
no, no.
I
But
mean,
that's the
we're
key to
professionals. We're professionals at that in the U.S., by the way.
that's the key to the insulation materials is they're obviously sustainable, they're breathable, and they're healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Does the I mean, do laws or regulations on help and on hemp make it difficult at times? I mean, like you said, the UK is behind in production and that sort of stuff. Is it because the US has had a quicker adoption of like medicinal marijuana and CBD oils and that type of stuff, or are we behind in that area and it's just luck of the draw? You just don't have the agricultural space to be growing hemp or the demand for it.
No, yeah, I think the US and Canada are well ahead of the UK on growing hemp for wellness
Yeah,
products and the whole medical side. But
yeah,
um, really, and that then unlocks the opportunity because a lot of CBD producers have maybe not achieved the values that they wanted from that, and now the sort of gold rush has passed, and they've been left with all of this
sure,
biomass and
yeah.
wondering what to do with it. And obviously, construction materials is a brilliant way to use or to get value from that biomass, and I think that's what's triggered the industry over your side is that waste stream. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
looking, yeah.
That
So,
makes
so that
a ton of sense. Is that waste root? Because I mean, if you're extracting the oil, now there's a lot of people that have like they take the flower and the hemp flower and you absorb the CBD benefits through smoking the hemp flower, right? But then there's the whole extraction of the oil from it. Is that biomass that's left from that extraction of the oil usable in the products? Is that part of the ingredient goes into your products after that? So
100%, 100%. You could
wow.
do
So
some.
you could have an industry that is producing CBD oils for health benefits, et cetera, which I use because I played 14 years of football. And so it is the CBD oils are like tremendous for the arthritis and pains that I have in my joints. It's excellent. But the leftover then could be used for making houses or buildings.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that's exactly what could happen. The other alternative is you let the plant grow to maturity, and then you've got seeds which you can produce plant protein from, and oils for cooking, and carrier oils even for CBD. So there's a huge opportunity, and
Wow. Okay.
every part of the plant can be used. It's you just got to be very clear about what you're growing it for, because
Yeah, that's true.
you know, your
In
end
many
use,
states in the United States, that's very true. You better be very clear what you're doing.
but, but your end use for the biomass
Yeah,
dictates how you want it processed, and then how you want it
right.
processed dictates at what stage of maturity you harvest, and 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 actually you can engineer that the other way around too. So it's
Ah, yeah.
there is a deal of complexity to it. It's not.
Yeah, it's not as simple as just grow the plant and then we do this to it and then the rest of it we can do that and do this and do this and do. It's the
No.
different, like you said, if you grow it to maturity and get the seeds, you've got other products that you can use out of it as well, right? So you're looking for
Yeah.
that most efficient from
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
growth
So
of that.
a mature plant, the fiber from a mature plant can be used for insulation, and the hurd, which is the woody
So is
core
that
of
the
the.
fiber from the stock, for the fibrous stock, or is that from the flower, or what is that? The
Yeah, there are
fiber?
no fibers that we would use in the flower. It's all from the stalk.
I got you.
So
Okay.
you've got a really long stem that's got a woody core,
Yeah.
which and the woody core is called hurd or shiv, and that's used to make hempcrete. We actually use it to make composites as well. Um, and then the long fibers that run up the outside of the plant, much like bamboo, um, they're the bast fibers, and with those fibers you can make insulation and non-woven felt material to make composites and other products. So
Oh, okay.
the more mature the plant is, the more lignin there is in the stem, and it
Okay.
means that the type of products you can make with the fiber are less refined. If you take a young plant that's been harvested for CBD, it's much greener and the fibers are much finer. And then you can do all sorts of things like textiles for cottonization. You can make textiles to make sanitary products,
Ah,
medical products. There are so many opportunities with it.
I see. Yeah. So that's so would like an older plant would be something you might make rope out of,
Yeah, yeah,
but then a younger plant, like you said, you have more cottonous type of things, more like clothing or something like that you
yeah.
can
Or
make,
bandages.
or
That
bandages.
yeah.
Gotcha. Is that the same with bamboo? Is that how bamboo works as well? Is that kind of in the same family there?
I am not sure, but I would
Okay.
absolutely assume that the new stalk or the new growth of bamboo when
Yeah.
it's green,
Yeah.
it would be similar than the
Then
when
the
it
older ones.
matures, it goes yellow and hard, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
yeah, I
I was on
suspect
a
it's similar.
walk. I was on a walk the other day and through some backwoods, and I tried to steal a little seedling that was coming up of bamboo, and I couldn't do it because I didn't have a knife or a hatchet strong enough to cut through it to grab the thing. I was trying to just pull it out. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. So, what is your what? Let's talk about your journey into sustainability and what got you interested in doing this stuff. Did you just wake up one day and say, "Ah, hemp, I'm going to make buildings out of this"? What was the catalyst? How did you get involved with this?
Yeah, I was I've been consulting for a number of years across a range of different sectors, and I got
Yeah,
involved in a project to create an eco hotel, so an off-grid resort, and I was looking for a way for the new buildings to be made that were going to be aligned with the overall objectives of the project, and naturally found hempcrete, hemp lime, and yeah, got involved at quite a heavy level, and
yeah,
and then by chance I started to consult for a really great guy down in the southwest of the UK who had some incredible ideas about how to use biocomposites in general to address a number of challenges, whether it be boat hulls for an electric boat or an advanced composite building made from natural fibers, and I got involved with that business, and that was the catalyst, and it was a very exciting journey. It was like doing an MBA on real life steroids because it wasn't in a lecture theatre. It was for a business, and
yeah,
made a lot of mistakes, learned a lot of lessons, and yeah, and I eventually moved on because they were focusing on medical cannabis and nutraceuticals. It's not
yeah.
really my area of interest, and I went off to pursue hemp buildings, and Hemspan was born off the back of that.
Yeah, that's very cool. Is it? I mean, is that? I mean, that's For other entrepreneurs and people who are looking and into this type of thing, is that would you recommend that type of path? Because it sounded like you just jumped in, right? What you weren't waiting for it to be perfect or sitting in a room planning things out. You just went out there and made those mistakes, took your shots on the chin, skinned your knees, and kept on going, right?
Yeah, I think I guess I'm the sort of person that's never had a job interview. So I've always moved from one thing to the next because someone I was introduced to someone. So
Yeah, yeah,
and I think there's a lot to be said for just you know yeah getting out there and trying different things
yeah.
and
Being
follow.
open to those opportunities and the winds of change, so to speak, and following those along. I get exactly what you're saying. I'm in that kind of made that discovery too late in life, but I made it, and I couldn't be happier. Doing exactly what you're talking about right there on your website. There's a lot of really interesting facts, and I love facts, and I love to discover and to for other people uncover and discover truths that are out there and that people may not understand, and not that they're hidden on purpose, but they're hidden because nobody's looking at them or considering them. For instance, here in throughout the world, I'm sure in the UK and other places, people feel like they're doing the best that they can with the impact to the environment and global warming, etc., by doing some recycling. We all know how bogus our recycling systems are. At least here in the United States, they're pitiful for what they actually do from the effort that people put into them. But what things they don't even realize is the carbon emissions that come from other things than just their car, right? Or just
Yeah,
or just an electric producing plant or something like that, right? And you've got these tremendous things in there. 39% of carbon emissions come from building and construction, right? So I mean, it's from the materials being utilized and the
yeah.
construction
I think if
process.
you
Is
take
that
a
close?
whole look at the globe, all the existing buildings and the buildings that are being built now, and you look at the carbon footprint of all of those materials in the construction phase
Mm-hmm.
and the energy that's consumed to heat and cool those buildings, then that total carbon footprint is makes up 40% essentially of the global carbon footprint, the built environment, which is a huge number. Um,
It is a huge number. So the 20, so okay, so then you break that down. 28% of that is from the energy consumption used to build it and then operate that building, right? And
ex-
11% comes from the actual materials and processes to build.
no, no. So the 28% is actually the energy in use, so heating and
Okay.
cooling, essentially.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, the
Gotcha.
energy that's used to make the products is factored into the embodied carbon statistics
I
of
gotcha. Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
concrete, steel, plastics, and all the other materials, glass, wiring,
Yeah,
metal.
there's so much that goes into that people don't understand. They don't think about. It's one of the things. I come from 35 years in logistics, right? Trucking and ocean carriage and warehousing and air freight, et cetera, rail, done all of that stuff. And people think that the 15% of the GHGs that are produced by transportation is a huge number. And in reality, it's probably equal to or more is the energy and the consumption to actually build those modes of transportation, right?
Of course,
It's
of
probably,
course.
and this is kind of the same kind of example, right? 39% of the carbon emissions in the world are from building and construction. That that is obviously more than double of what transportation is just burning fuel, right?
Yeah.
Which you would think would be the biggest thing, but it's actually not. It's many
No,
other
no, no,
aspects of
no.
our.
I would probably. I'm not reading this from anywhere, but I think concrete is 6% on its own of global emissions.
No, I know concrete is
Yeah.
really, really bad on as far as its carbon footprint is not really good. The other part of concrete that I understand, I don't have any number facts for you, but it is the consumption of sand is becoming worrisome as well. And so recycling plastic into, or the end of the true end of life plastics, right? Not that I'm done drinking this plastic bottle of water and I throw it away. That's not end of life. It needs to be recycled about 20 times before that's going to hit end of life. That 20 times end of life plastics can be used in, to a certain degree, inside cement as a filler in place of sand, and still hit its tensile strengths that's needed for construction, is my
Yeah, I
understanding
think
of
that
what that
there
is.
are a lot of innovations going on with concrete, and it's and I think things will change, and the
Yeah.
performance of concrete from a
Yeah. Yeah. No,
carbon
they
perspective
certainly
is
will.
changing rapidly. We have to use it, a little bit of it, in our houses, because you with the foundations,
Yeah,
we
sure.
we still need to use a little bit.
Still
Um,
have to have a foundation. I mean, you
yeah,
get.
what we do ours differently. We use a raft system, so it uses a fraction of the amount of concrete that you would
Oh,
normally. So
well, let's get into that. Let's get into that a little bit, the construction and what you mean by this the entire house system or the entire house ecosystem, what it is. On your site, you talk about passive versus active houses, right? And I think that would maybe I'm wrong, but I think that would lead into a good discussion as to what you're talking about when you talk about your entire house system. Can you
yeah,
get into that a little bit?
yeah, I can. I mean, so passive house is the most well-known standard over here in Europe, and more countries are adopting the passive house standard for new buildings. Scotland being the most recent, and really, what it's about is saying that your a passive house is so thermally efficient and so well insulated that the energy required to heat and cool that building is equal to or less than the power generated by the photovoltaics on the roof or wind turbine and what other elements you've got. So they're basically net energy positive.
Wow. Okay.
Now that sounds great,
It does. That I mean,
but
that sounds pretty
yeah,
impressive to me.
yeah, and coming back to the statistics around global emissions, that's dealing with three-quarters of the problem around the built environment. Yeah,
Okay. Right.
so brilliant. But the other quarter and is untouched by passive house. It and actually you could have a house that's incredibly efficient but full of toxic materials that are not very good for you,
Uh,
and the carbon footprint of the construction phase could be huge.
so is it possible to have a passive house that doesn't make up for the carbon footprint that it produced to make that house?
Uh,
Did I ask
you
that
would
right?
have it is, but you would have to be exporting energy, so you would have
Yeah.
to have yeah. So possibly,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, but
Okay.
it's
But go ahead. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. I
yeah,
did
no,
mean to
no,
interrupt because I had a question. But go ahead.
yeah. An active house is it follows it's a much greater extension of some of the passive house principles, but it focuses more on passive ventilation and natural ventilation. It focuses on how the building is made, what products are used in the construction phase, a greater focus on sustainability, on water consumption, and a whole raft of um, other dynamics. Daylight, the amount of the natural light flowing into a building. Um, but active house doesn't necessarily say that that house has got to be carbon negative in its life in terms of whole life emissions, and that's really where
Mm.
we see an opportunity for our system, which is called biohouse. And biohouse basically is negative whole life carbon emissions. It means that in the construction phase, all of those biomaterials go so far below zero that when you add the wiring and the unavoidable materials that have a carbon footprint, because you can't, the bit of concrete we need, the wiring, the ducting, and all the other things, that by the time it's built, the building is still carbon negative. and then because of the solar PV on the roof, and maybe air source or ground source heat pumps as well, the house actually produces more energy than it needs over a year, and
Hmm.
that's ultimately what we're trying to achieve. And hemp is the key ingredient to making that happen.
That is really interesting. When I was in a former life working in maritime, we had a container freight station in South Florida in Miami, and we had two enormous, and they were diesel run, but they had two enormous generators so that we could sustain ourselves for a minimum of 2 weeks in the event of a hurricane strike, because we were a main supply line for the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands and the Windward Islands in the Caribbean, and the uh, and I forget what the energy company is there in Florida, but in Miami, but they had the ability to, and we got tax incentives because they could tap into and turn on our generators and produce energy for the surrounding communities. Um, Under certain conditions and at certain times of day, et cetera. So we were selling energy. Is it possible to have a neighborhood of Hemspan houses and active houses that would actually be producing electricity and power for the community?
100%, and that's what we're working on. So we're working with a local landowner, um, who have a 2,000-acre farm. They have grown hemp at scale before,
Mm-hmm.
and we are preparing. We're in the early concept design phase for a proof of concept development for 15 houses. And the plan is that all 15 houses are built to a carbon negative specification with the biohouse system, and that development is a net exporter of energy into the grid. Um, so it's exactly as you described, and actually, you know, how houses should not be consumers of energy. They should be producers of energy, and there's no reason why that can't be the norm.
I'm starting to come around and understand exactly what you're doing there and go, man, this is better than I ever thought. And then when I was digging out, I was thinking, wow, he's making um, two by fours out of hemp. This is cool. Let's talk. No, this is way deeper and much, much cooler. And I agree with you. That is tremendous. So you could actually solve the issue, one of the issues of like electric vehicles, right? I mean, like EVs. I mean, you're running your house, and your house could be powering your car as well. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it all if you've got the thermal efficiency right,
Yeah.
and you've got enough solar, wind, ground source, air source, heat pump
Wow.
technology, then absolutely. Um, yeah,
We've got a little bit of time left. We can talk about a number of different things. I was interested in your take on one of the things that is in your stories and in your portions on your, I guess they're more like your stories or your blog section on your website, et cetera, where you talk about misguided national energy policies. And what we were just talking about kind of inspired me to go into this at this point. Because really, I can see where there's these battles that will start to happen as far as as you become more and more successful for what you're doing. Then it becomes okay. At what point do energy positive or carbon negative houses become a threat to the or not so much a threat, but become a negative impact to the rest of the energy utility, so to speak, right? Like you can't have an electric plant sitting there just in case it happens to be a cloudy month, and therefore you turn it on to power houses, and because solar's not there, right? You have to have those funds to keep it managed and all that other kind of stuff. It has to produce and sell so much energy, and as if the houses become more and more energy producers, like you said, that dynamic changes. But it leads to certain policies that have to come. What are some of the policies that you're looking at that you think are misguided national policies, and they don't have to just be in the UK. I know of many that are in the United States that are unintentionally uh, misguided, in
Yeah,
my
there are
view.
a couple of that I'm very passionate about, but I just wanted to qualify maybe what I said before, that I'm not suggesting that houses that export energy could somehow replace power stations.
Mm,
It's just because the energy required for infrastructure and manufacturing and everything
sure,
else that's required is
sure,
huge. So what we're talking about doing is is taking the demand for electricity for new houses, taking that pressure off the grid. That's what we're talking about.
right,
We
okay,
can't
yeah.
we can't deal with what's already built,
No,
but we
I
can
understand.
reduce.
I understand. So they're not going to, yeah, start. We're not going to supply the Volkswagen plant down the road from me with power from our houses.
No, 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 no,
Yeah,
no,
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 I
no,
get
no.
that. Yeah, no, I totally understand. I totally get that.
Yeah,
So,
no,
what are some of the policies that we need as citizens to be aware of that you're passionate about? That obviously you're passionate about them because there's a either intentional or unintentional negative impact that is there. What do we need to
yeah.
be
So
aware of?
there's been a huge amount of funding in the UK for ground source and air source heat pumps,
Mm,
and government grants have been available, and these things are being installed all over the country. And it's great technology, but if the house is not thermally efficient, then it is a complete waste of time, money, and resources. And actually, producing those products has a carbon footprint that you're needlessly, um, creating as a result. If they don't do the job that they're intended to do. And there was an
mm,
article in the British press today, about these heat pumps and how after review it doesn't look great. So you can only use them if the homes are really efficient. So there's
mm.
a huge sort of drive to insulate homes, in the UK and in Europe, and that's really important. But the problem is, if you insulate homes with petrochemical derived products and plastics, you're potentially creating other problems with damp and and mold. Because if you've got a brick building that's not very well insulated, you get moisture in on the
Sure.
inside of the wall, and if you
Yeah.
put a plastic sheet or insulation over that, you're trapping that mold or
Yeah.
that moisture between the brick wall and the insulation,
Right.
and you get all sorts of problems with mold growth
Yeah.
and and significant damage to human health. So I think all of this sort of the race for net zero can have unintended consequences if actually, particularly when the government makes snap decisions about
Yeah.
funding, you know, things. Yeah, where it's gone right, I would say, is solar. Because it's it's hard to ignore the contribution that makes. You're replacing the energy you would otherwise be drawing from the grid with energy
Yeah.
generated on the roof. It
Yeah.
makes
No,
complete.
it's tremendous. I think wind energy is coming along quite well as well. I mean, at least in the United States, it has been calculated now that it's actually cheaper than coal
Mm,
now in the United States, which is and the Biden administration is dumping, I think, $22.4 billion or something into new wind energy construction, et cetera. Which, yeah, I mean, we got to do something. But you're right. There's unintentional consequences that occur, and whether it's political grandstanding or not, we need to be aware of these things because our elected officials are in there. They're not because they're uh, alternative energy experts, but they're supposed to be representing what you think and what I think and you know what is best for us, and we're supposed to be feeding them that information. So yeah, getting that information out as to why this what seems to be a great idea. We need to be thinking about the slippery slopes that were walking along and could slide down really easy are it's important to understand what those are, right?
Yeah, look, the other thing, is the plant-based diet is
Yeah.
booming, and I have strong views on this subject, but I won't. That's for another day. But you have to be careful when you lunge at something new at such a big scale so quickly that there
Mm.
aren't unintended consequences. And I think with hemp, you know, if you grow it the right way and you grow it in rotation,
Hmm.
and a good portion of it is grown to maturity for
Hmm.
food,
Hmm.
then I think it's sustainable and
Yeah.
complementary to you know the existing food chain and ecosystem. I think, um,
Yeah, I agree
and I
with you.
think it works.
I agree with you. The closer you stay to the natural um, circularity that is there. I mean, nature, the universe itself is circular. I mean, everything it you know it is the greatest circular economy that is there, and it's incredibly efficient. And the more you can mimic that in what we do in our products, et cetera, I think is the better, right? I mean, using hemp for products, et cetera, is not new. It's
No,
it's it's rediscovered and was probably interrupted by the invention of plastics and steel and et cetera, right? I mean, because I mean, hemp was a huge crop of the colonies, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Look, it's things have to be done the right way, and if you only grew hemp and you only grew it for and you harvested it all early, and then you
yeah,
plowed the fields at the end, it's not as effective as if you if you grow a good portion of it to full maturity, produce food from
yeah.
it, and then farm it in the right way so that the root systems are left in the soil. And that is
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
if you I guess you'll know quite a bit about regenerative farming already, but that is a really vital ingredient. Modern
Yeah,
methods of farming
yeah. You have to
are
do it the right. You have to do it the right way. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, no doubt about it. Well, listen, this has been awesome, and we'll have to get into some of the other stuff and check back and with the progress, et cetera. Where do people go and learn more about what you're doing, and can they support what you're doing? How do they support what you're doing? And can I get a Mudford Wood house built here in the United States? Because that particular one, I was looking at the design of that particular project, and I love that building. That is a beautiful house, by the way. And people need to go check out your website to see it.
Yeah,
Is
look, I
that it
think the
right there?
best.
That's not it right there behind you. Is that the
No, that's
Mudford?
one
That's
of our other projects.
one of the other ones. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of information on our website. People can then reach out and connect with us in all sorts of different ways. We do hope that we're successful enough that our product will be licensed to an appropriate partner over in the US, and that a Murtford Wood house could be built in your on a piece of land for you. um,
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's and I think actually
We'll test it at elevation in Tennessee.
yeah,
I'll get some land up on Flat Top Mountain here, about 20 minutes away, and we'll build it up there. And we'll call it a project, and we'll get grant funding, and I'll live in there.
well there we go. I mean, we're still a startup.
Yeah,
We're raising capital, and we're about to close our second investment round,
nice,
at a million, which has been great. And and we'll be raising funds again by the middle of this year. So again,
sweet.
that's
So
another
where do
way for
people go
people
to
to get
keep
involved.
a track of what you're doing there and look at investment opportunities and see what's there? Where do they go to?
Well, they could just go to our website, and I've got a special friend. Um,
Is it hempspan.com?
yeah, it is hemspan.com. That's right. Yeah.
Hem. It's not hemp Hemspan. It's Hemspan,
Correct.
HEMSPAN, right?
Yeah,
.com.
HEMSPAN. Yeah,
Right.
deliberately not not hemp span, just
No.
because yeah, just a little
Yeah, no.
bit sort of under the radar.
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's perfect. So go there, check out what Matthew's doing and they're doing at Hemspan. I love it. I learned a lot today. I had no idea that some of this stuff that you were talking about was there, and I love what you're doing there as far as the entire. I mean, building out those projects is because it's showing you exactly what you can do with those materials and how all that works together. And it's brilliant. We'll have to check in and find out how the project goes with building that neighborhood that is going to be
Yeah,
basically energy positive.
yeah,
Is really really tremendous stuff. Really
yeah.
appreciate you
Well, look,
being
I'll be
on the.
delighted to come back maybe this time next year and let you know how we're getting on.
Yeah, sweet. I'll put it on my calendar. I'll take you up on that offer for sure. And hey, be well and peace and love, my friend. This has been a
Yeah,
Sustainax,
thanks.
everybody.
Thank you, Michael. Been a
You
pleasure.
got it.
Thank you. Bye bye.